In this episode, we talk about the notable games I have recently played. We also discuss one of the tried and true engine building games, Splendor, and ask the question, is there any good alternative to Splendor? Hello everyone and welcome to episode 15 of On Deck, a podcast about my tabletop gaming journey in the Philippines. If it's your first time listening in, welcome to the show. My name is Glory and I host this podcast. I also run the hobby Instagram account, The Board Gamer PH, where I take pictures of and talk about the games I play with my friends. We have a very good show today, guys. I'm quite excited about it. Some announcements will be made along the way, so without further ado, let's begin with some What have I been playing? So it's been a good couple of gaming weeks for me. Of course, if you've heard my previous episodes, you know that I have a joint project with a gaming library called G Live Game Night, where we stream our game night every Tuesday night. On average, we usually play around 3 to 4 games a night, and though I'm not playing each and every game, this has bumped up my games played a week significantly. So what have I been playing lately? Note that the games I talk about in this segment are not all the games I've played recently, but just the more significant ones because I don't want to waste your time listening to me talking about games that I didn't find that good for my taste at least. So the first game on the list is Chameleon. Chameleon is a bluffing game for 3 to 8 players from Big Potato Games. This game is very simple. Each player will be given a card indicating whether they are the chameleon or not. If you are the chameleon, your card will say so, and if not, your card will have coordinates. 2 dice will then be rolled, and you can use your card to determine the secret word from the topic card. So the topic cards can range from a variety of different things, like books, movies, TV shows, heroes, etc. Players will take turns giving one-word clues relating to the secret word, including the chameleon. Once everyone has given their clue, everyone votes on who they think the chameleon is based on the clues given, and if the chameleon is caught, he or she has one chance to guess what the word is. That's it. So how will the chameleon be able to do this? The chameleon will give a clue word relating to all of the words in general, kasi nga, it's a topic card. So it can be relating to any kind of movie or tatry niyang i-hit as many words as possible in the topic card. This game is super fun. It's basically a simple spyfall, and for some reason, I like it more. It's something you can play with super new players and they will not be bogged down by the constant back and forth in questioning. Kasi nga, if you're the spy and you're a new player, you'll be super stressed out because you don't know where they are, right, in Spyfall. Here, since there is a general topic card, you have at least a clue and you'll just have to be creative in giving out your clue word. And you can actually be as generic as you want. But of course, you have the risk of being accused as the chameleon if you go super generic. So I like the fact that they gave 2 variants of the cards with the coordinates to ensure that the game becomes replayable, although it's not that easy to memorize the coordinates. And I doubt anyone will, kahit isa lang yung binigay nila. I also like the fact that they give you 1 blank topic card so you can make your own. So this is a great addition to your collection if you find yourself with a group that likes deduction and bluffing. The next game is Illusion. Illusion is a small card game from Pandasaurus Games for 2 to 5 players. It's designed by the hottest designer right now, Wolfgang Warsch. This game, like the Mind, is a very simple game. On each turn, a card is drawn to determine the color being assessed. Okay, so there's an assessment of color. There's a stack of cards with pictures on them. The pictures usually look like abstract paintings consisting of patterns with red, blue, yellow, and green colors. So imagine an abstract painting and yun lang yung colors niya. 1 card is laid out and each player will take turns placing the next card on the stack in a row, declaring their guess on whether it has more or less of the color being assessed. A player can also opt to challenge the current arrangement instead of placing a card. If the arrangement is wrong, the player who challenged gets the point card. If not, the point card goes to the person before the person who challenged it. So you usually do the challenge if you're super sure that there's something wrong in the arrangement or if the next card is super hard. So there's actually a game in this small card game. You can try to strategize by placing a card in the wrong arrangement. As isasadyain mo siya. And you'll hope that no one will challenge it. So that by the time it gets to your turn, you're the one who challenges it and you get the point card even if you were the one who caused it in the first place. But even without that strategy, this game is just pure fun. I should mention that the stack of cards consists of really weird and random shapes. It's impossible to memorize the color value of each card, so you can play it repeatedly and not really be a master of it. You just have to trust your eyes and your instinct. I know that it says it just goes up to 5, but I've played this game with as many as 8 people and it just works. We turn it into a drinking game and no one really minds whether they're winning or losing. Basta mag-shot ka lang kung mali ka. The next game is Silver Amulet. Silver Amulet is a card game for 2 to 4 players from Bezier Games. It's basically a little step up from Cabo. For those not aware of Cabo, this is how the game of Silver Amulet is played. Each player will receive a set of 5 face-down cards arranged in a row. All players will then take 2 cards and look at them and place them in the exact same spot in the row. The cards, by the way, are numbered from 0 to 30. At no point in time can the players look and rearrange their cards or any other cards of other players unless an action card allows them to do so. So on each turn, a player can do 3 things. Draw a card, or get a card from the top of the discard pile, and replace one or more of their face-down cards. Why one or more? Kasi you can replace pairs. They can also draw a card and discard it right away to use its power or call for a vote. Once a player calls for a vote, one last turn is done by all other players except that person who called the vote, and all cards will be revealed. The player with the least numbered value sum of the cards wins the round. If the player who called the vote has the lowest value, they score 0. If they are not the lowest value, they get a penalty of 10 points plus their actual value. All other players get the actual value of their cards. At the end of 4 rounds, the player with the least number of points wins. So how is this game different from Cabo? First, all the cards in Silver Amulet have special powers. In Cabo, only certain cards allow actions and the actions are limited to peek, spy, and swap. In Silver Amulet, there are other cards that will allow you to protect cards, peek at your cards before you take your turn, check the draw pile, and the usual peek, swap, and spy. Second, Cabo is played until a player reaches 100 points. You can shorten it if you want by lessening it to 50 points, but in Silver Amulet, the game is just played in 4 rounds. So what do I like better? I like Silver Amulet better. I don't think it adds any unnecessary complexity in the game. I actually like the fact that there are more things to think about in this game. I like the mix of the cards, even though there may be cards that seem more useful than others. I also like the fact that some cards can only be activated when discarded, and some can only be used when placed face up in your tableau or your row. Finally, I love that the game is just played in 4 rounds. For me, Cabo had a tendency of running a bit too long, especially when a player reaches exactly 100 points and resets to 50. But here, since it's only played in 4 rounds, there is a definite end that all players are looking forward to. But that being said, will I be keeping Cabo? The answer is yes. I think Cabo still has a place in my collection for those nights when I'm with people who wouldn't want to read the powers of the cards. It's also a great way to introduce the mechanics of Silver Amulet. I think Silver Amulet can turn off certain new gamers who would love the simplicity of Cabo. And if you don't like playing for a long time, you can just set the end game condition to 60 or 50 points. I also got a copy of Silver Bullet because obviously I really like this system and how simple it is. I think the complexity rating is the same as Silver Amulet, but this gives me more cards and I think also allows the game to go up to a bigger player count. So I'm very, very excited to try that. The next game is Suburbia. Suburbia is another game by Bezier Games. This time, a city building game for 1 to 5 players. This is basically SimCity, the board game. If you're a 90s kid, like me, you probably spent hours playing SimCity when you were a kid. And this is probably the best board game representation of that game. Suburbia is a tile laying game where the tile represents different types of plots of land: residential homes, commercial spots, industrial plants, and even infrastructure. Tile placement affects two resources that you're basically juggling throughout the game: income and reputation. Income gives you money that allows you to buy better and more expensive tiles that give you more, but reputation allows you to gain population, and the player with the most population at the end of the game wins. So again, there's this push and pull of the resources because you want to have a high reputation to keep on gaining population, but at the same time, you also need to work on your income, otherwise you won't be able to buy the good tiles. In the game, you can also opt to get rid of a tile and turn it into a lake, allowing you to gain a one-time burst of money. Finally, there are also spots on the scoreboard that once you pass, you must deduct one income and one reputation from your tracker. If you've never heard of Suburbia and you're having a hard time picturing it, just imagine the tiles are hexagonal 2D pieces with pictures on it and an indicator on the effect. We also played the game with the Suburbia Ink expansion, which allows players to purchase special shaped tiles that serves as a border to their city. These borders are more expensive and are also more powerful and can also be turned into sea borders. So during my first game of Suburbia, I found myself very frustrated because the turns were made in such a way that there were no good cheap tiles available during my turn. It wasn't the game's fault though. It was my fault, obviously, because of the way I built my engine. I prioritized reputation too much without balancing a boost in my income, which means that it took a while for my engine to pick up. And by the time my income increased, the game was about to end. And though my reputation was good, I didn't have enough end game boosts to up my population more. So you really need to balance those two resources well and figure out the best engine that will work for you. Now with that being said, I still purchased Suburbia Collector's Edition and it also arrived yesterday because I really enjoyed this game despite the frustration. I mentioned before that I am not a fan of tile laying games, but this game doesn't feel like that at all. I feel like they could have made the pieces into something else, maybe 3D blocks, and I would still like it. It's really a city building game instead of a tile laying game when you're working to be the biggest of something and score the biggest of something. Here, the tile placement has something to do with your engine, similar to Heaven and Ale, and I like that in games. I also like the fact that each game has its own unique goals that the players are working for. I think the Suburbia Collector's Edition is the best bang for your buck version of the game and what you should get if you don't have a copy of the base game. Of course, if you do and you are a big fan of Suburbia, getting the Collector's Edition is up to you. But if you've tried it and liked it and want to get in on it, I suggest saving up some money for the Collector's Edition. The thing that turned me off the most about the base game was the look of it. It didn't really spark this need for me to play it because it felt like an outdated game. Of course, I was wrong about that, but first impressions do matter. The Collector's Edition fixed that for me. The artwork has been updated and the tiles are bigger, so the presence is better. You also get a tile tower dispenser, like come on, a tile tower dispenser, and some beautiful game tray inserts from Game Trays. Best of all, this game already comes with all of the expansions for Suburbia and a never-before-released expansion. So for me, it was a no-brainer. It would have been more expensive for me to get the base game and the expansions than to get the Collector's Edition, which is the bigger, better, and more complete edition. Next game is Dream On. Dream On is a cooperative memory and storytelling game for 2 to 8 players from Come On Games. In this game, each player will have a hand of 3 cards with a picture in it. It's then an open round wherein players will place cards, telling a story using those cards. The story does not need to be connected in any logical way. But it has to be about the card you just placed. The round goes on like this, with players refilling their hand until the timer runs out. After that, the cards are arranged accordingly and placed in a face-down stack. Phase 2 of the game involves players trying to recall the elements of the story. Each player will take turns doing this, and the team scores 2 points if the player is able to recall the element accurately without getting any help from the other players, 1 point if they needed help, and 0 points if they got it wrong. The rulebook gives you a scoring metric depending on your total points at the end of the game that allows you to determine whether you did well or not, just like in Just One. With games like this, the score doesn't really matter, it's just a ton of fun. The frantic moment of trying to come up with a story using your cards, at the same time trying to remember the elements you all placed, is such a chaotic and fun experience. It's worth getting the game just for that. Phase 2 is where the game really is, as you try to remember what crazy thing your teammate placed in the story. And once you do remember, you feel so triumphant because it's hard, which I did not expect at all. This game is not yet available here, although it's a 2017 game. I'm trying to find a way to get a copy of this game because it was such a fun experience, and I think it will go well with all of my game groups. The fun factor depends on the vibe of the group, and if there are players who get turned off because there's no logic in the story, the energy might not be the same. You have to play this game with people who are also just looking for some fun and finds the absurdity of it all funny, like you. If you have that group of friends, this party game is a must-buy. Next is 5 Tribes. 5 Tribes is a set collection for 2 to 4 players from Days of Wonder that uses the Mancala game mechanic or Songka. There are a variety of different rules for this game, so I'm just going to give you a quick overview. Each round starts with an auction on turn order. Each player will basically indicate an amount of money that they will pay to go first, and the next players will then choose whether they are going to pay more, less, or not pay anything at all, and this determines turn order. After this auction, each player will take turns taking meeples off square tiles that make up the whole board. These meeples are different colors, representing different types. After taking the meeples, you'll proceed to drop the meeple on the adjacent tiles one by one until you reach a tile that has the same colored meeple as your last meeple. You'll then proceed to take those meeples off the last tile and take their action. The action available will depend on the color. Some are worth straight up points, some will let you build certain types of buildings, some are currencies that you can spend for gins, not gin as in Gin, gin as in DJINN. You'll also do the action printed on the last tile, and they're also all different. You can get goods from the market, build palaces, erect palm trees, etc. If you're able to take all meeples off a particular tile, you get that as part of your territory. So play just proceeds in this manner until there are no more legal moves. After the game, all the scores are added. Scores can come from different parts of the game, from the tiles that are part of your territory, the sets of unique goods you purchased from the market, the gins you got, and also the meeples in front of you. The player with the most points wins. 5 Tribes is probably one of the most popular games in 2014 and 2015. Until now, the game is still very, very popular because there are big fans of the game that will never ever get rid of it. There are also 2 expansions out for the game. I have the first one, but I haven't played it yet. I absolutely love this game. I grew up playing Mancala. Well, di ko alam na Mancala yung tawag doon. Songka lang yun sa amin, okay? I love that this game utilizes that mechanic. I'm sure there are many more games that have utilized it before, like Longhorn, and now recently a Fistful of Meeples. But I think 5 Tribes was able to transform that mechanic into a wonderful and full game. I'm sure people love this game because the exercise of trying to find the best move and figuring out whether paying more to go first is worth it is super fun. I also love how points salady this game is. As I mentioned, points can come from a variety of things, so not all the players are going for the same thing. For example, during my last play of this game, I found myself focusing on the set collection aspect more because all of my opponents were already focused on trying to take the territories, And by the time my turn came around, all the good moves were gone. However, I understand that because of the ability to find the best move, this game can also be polarizing to some people. Once people start talking about a really great move that they see on the board and you don't see it, you might not like that pressure and stress. We played it with Sam in the stream, and although she won, she didn't seem to enjoy it as much as we did. I understand why, because it can be very frustrating if you feel like you're not, maximizing your turn. But that said, I'll be keeping this game. I'll also unbox and try it with the first expansion, Artisans of Nakala, because I heard that it adds really interesting stuff in the game. The next game is Kingdomino PH. Kingdomino is a tile-laying game for 2 to 4 players from Blue Orange Games. Recently, Kingdomino Philippines edition was released. Nothing's different though, except the meeples, with original art localizing the meeples. So there's a meeple in Barong, for example. If you already own Kingdomino, is it worth getting the Philippine edition? It depends. If you really like Kingdomino and just want the local version, then yes. Otherwise, it's not, since nothing's different except that. But if you don't own Kingdomino like me, I suggest getting the Philippine edition. Kingdomino is a very popular game and won the Spiel des Jahres in 2017. So I won't go too deep into the rules since many people will be familiar with it. But it's basically a game wherein you're drafting tiles, showing 2 or the same type of terrain. You place it on your tableau and it must follow domino rules in placing, meaning it must be adjacent to at least one similar terrain. Your tableau cannot exceed a 5x5 grid. You get points through the crown printed on the terrain multiplied by the number of adjacent squares of the same terrain. You also get bonus points if your castle remains in the middle of the 5x5 grid. I want to talk about the Age of Giants expansion. The Age of Giants expansion just adds 2 things. It replaces the bonus at the end of the game into different goals. It can be place a specific type of terrain in a specific place. It also adds giants that appear on the draft. If you draft a tile with a giant on it, you must cover one of your crowns. But once you draft a tile with footsteps on it, you can pass the giant to another player and they must cover one of their crowns. For me, what makes a great expansion is one that tweaks the game and makes it better but does not feel like such a slight change that you wonder why it wasn't included in the base game in the first place. That's how I felt with the Age of Giants expansion. I've said it before in different occasions, I felt like Queendomino was unnecessarily complicated for what it wanted to be, which was a basic tile-laying game that can be introduced to new players but at the same time meaty enough to entice the gamers to play. There were too many nuances and they didn't capture me. So what I did was I would play Queendomino like Kingdomino. I just disregarded the red tiles. So sayang, diba? That was completely changed by my experience with Kingdomino with the Age of Giants expansion. I really liked what the expansion added to the game. I love the new goals and how it has the ability to change your experience from game to game. I also like the giants and how they cause the appropriate amount of nuance to your game and does not really break your game if you do not get the chance to get rid of them. Now, with this version of Kingdomino, it is the absolute best beginner tile-laying game I want to introduce to just everyone. I'll probably throw in the Age of Giants expansion most of the time because it's not overly complex. Also, I must mention that my favorite part of the expansion is the tile dispenser. I have something about dispensers, okay? It was wonky for a bit, but I love the added functionality of just shuffling the tiles in the beginning, placing them inside the tile dispenser, and that's it. I'll probably always play with it. The next game is Imperial Settlers Roll and Write. Imperial Settlers is a civilization roll and write game from Portal Games for 2 to 4 players. In this game, you're basically trying to create your civilization or empire. On each turn, 2 types of dice are rolled. One dice indicates the number of actions you can take during the round, and the other dice indicates the resources available for that round. You can use the action to either build your special buildings, expand your empire, or harvest. Building the special buildings will give you stuff. You can get food every round, you can get extra movements if the die shows same resources and others. Expanding the empire will give you points at the end of the game depending on how much you've expanded. And harvesting gives you a specific resource in that same round. Actions do not require resources unless indicated in the box. You can also use the resources rolled for that round plus all those harvested. And then, once per round, you can cross out a specific kind of pattern on your empire, which allows you to upgrade your buildings. Once upgraded, every time that building is activated, you gain an extra of that bonus. At the end of 10 rounds, the player with the most points wins. I talked about this game briefly in the previous episode, and now that I've gotten more games in, I can confidently say that this is my favorite roll and write game. It totally replaces Roll Through the Ages for me. I love everything about it. I like the buildings, I love the upgrading of the buildings, I love that the buildings don't earn you points, it's actually expanding your empire, but expanding your empire does not make you more efficient in any way, so there's a push and pull there. I also like the harvesting, and that it takes one action to actually harvest, and you do not get automatic access to it. You need to unlock it by expanding your empire. So ang daming nangyayari in such a small roll and write game. And I love the look. If there's a couple of nitpicky things I can say about it, it's that I wish there was a better way to track the actions you've made, because once you get into it, it can get a bit confusing. I also wish there were more variable buildings available for the competitive game. Out of the box, there's only one type of building set for the competitive game and a ton for the solitaire game, which makes me want to play it solitaire actually. So I wish it came with the same kind of set for the competitive game, but I'm sure they will come out with more, considering that Portal Games loves expanding their games, so I will get all of them for sure. The next game is Pappy Winchester. Pappy Winchester is an auction game for 3 to 5 players from Blue Orange Games. In this game, Pappy Winchester, or Pappy, is dead, and his heirs are co-owners of his parcels of land, and they are trying to outbid one another. Each turn, a plot to be auctioned is chosen, and all players participate in the auction. You all start with $8,000. Once it is awarded to the winner of the auction, when everyone has passed, they place their token on the land and the auction proceeds. But what's interesting is that the bid amount is paid not to the bank, but to the other players who are co-owners of the land. Amazing! If it cannot be divided equally, the rest is played in the saloon. The different plots of land are different terrains, and depending on the player's secret objective, it can be worth more to different types of players. So they're chasing different things. Or are they? Aside from the secret objective, there are also public objectives. And once a player is able to achieve that goal or objective, they get the bonus money with it. Goals can be 5 different non-adjacent land, stuff like that. The different plots also contain tokens that lets player do different things, like take all the money in the saloon, move the ship or the train to a specific spot, which gives a bonus of 1,000 to the owners of the plots, and other different actions. Another interesting mechanic is that when you're sure that you cannot outbid the last remaining bidder, you can use your duel token, and you duel. If you win, you pay the last bid amount. But you only have duel token every game, so you have to choose wisely. After all the plots of land have been auctioned out, the player with the most money, including their secret objective bonuses, wins the game. I don't own a lot of auction games. The only game I had before Pappy is For Sale, which I also enjoy. And I didn't expect to like this game as much as I do. I love the closed economy in this game, and how it's in line with the game of all the players being co-owners of the whole board. I also like the simplicity of scoring. It's basically richest person wins, but you can go big at the start and take it easy towards the end because money are worth points. I also like the fact that it comes with secret and public objectives, so the value you attribute to the plots you're bidding on can have a concrete value in your head and you're not just bidding aimlessly. I super love this game. The best part of this game is the price. It's 1,400 pesos. Same price of some roll and writes like Imperial Settlers. Actually, Imperial Settlers is 1,500. It's also closer to some of the more expensive two-player games like Hanami Koji. But it goes up to 5, packs a punch, and it's really, really entertaining. I think it's one of my best buys this 2020. Well, it's only February, but I swear, this game is really worth it. Highly recommend you guys picking this game up. I'll end this segment with a segue to the next segment. Hadara is a card drafting set collection game for 2 to 5 players from Z-Man Games. In Hadara, players are drafting different kinds of cards that have different effects. When they choose a card, they must pay the cost, and at the end of the round, they earn income depending on the current status of their civilization, which is also dictated by the cards they purchased, since the cards can increase income, among other things. Once you get certain cards, you also get a discount for succeeding cards of the same type that you buy. You earn points from the cards you drafted, the status of your income track, and also the bonuses you purchased. The player with the most points at the end of the 3 rounds wins. I'll save my overall thoughts for the next segment, but I really like this game. I also love the fact that there are a number of things going on and you want to work towards different things. I also like the fact that you have essentially a card limit because you need to be able to feed your people or have the same or more than number of food upgrades equal to the cards you have. So if you have 5 cards, you have to be at least on number 5 in your food track. It's unique and eliminates the tendency to hoard cheap cards to get more discounts. This game is so good. I'm really happy I picked it up. So those are the games I recently played. Let me know if you've tried these games and what your experience was with these games, and if you agree or disagree with my thoughts. I would really love to hear from you guys. You can reach me through a variety of ways, but the easiest would be through On Deck's Facebook page. If you're not part of that, you should be. You can just search On Deck on Facebook and it will take you there. Let's now move on to our next segment, which is all about Splendor and its alternatives. I think I should clarify that this segment won't be an in-depth review of Splendor. I'll be saving that for a video podcast I'll be releasing through the Board Gamer PH's YouTube account. Yes, I have a YouTube account, but it does not have a lot of content yet. Currently, it only has these episodes, the podcast, without any video, and some early gameplay videos of G Live. But I will be putting content there as video companions of On Deck, so if I feel like something I talk about needs to have a video companion, you'll see them there. So if you want to be notified when I release content on YouTube, please do subscribe to the Board Gamer PH's YouTube account. Just search the Board Gamer PH. So anyway, I wanted to briefly talk about Splendor and its alternatives as part of curating my board game collection. Splendor is without a doubt one of the most popular gateway games, especially here in the Philippines. Back when I was starting with the hobby, people were just crazy about Splendor, and there were Splendor tournaments left and right. After playing the game, I quickly knew why. It was such a clean and streamlined game that's a good introduction to the hobby and to the engine building and set collection mechanic. Because of this popularity, games that come out after Splendor are often measured against the Splendor stick. Is it as good as Splendor? Different games are dubbed as Splendor killers. The most popular of these quote-unquote Splendor killers would be Century Spice Road. And people do feel like Century Spice Road was the better game, and I'm not here to argue that Splendor is the better game, although I think it is. I'm just here to talk about what I'll be keeping in my collection as Splendor alternatives. First of all, why do I even need alternatives to Splendor when Splendor is, I feel like, a perfect game already? Well, there are a couple of reasons. First, natural curiosity. If I see a game getting hype, people talking about how this game is so much better than Splendor, I am naturally curious how that game is, and so I try it, and sometimes I end up liking it. Number 2, Splendor is probably my most played game in the collection, and so sometimes I just need a breath of fresh air. And number 3, different players can handle different complexities, and I play with a variety of different groups. So having a more basic game than Splendor or a more complex game than Splendor has a place in my collection. So what have I tried? I've tried Century Spice Road, Gizmos, Res Arcana, Majesty for the Realm, Hadara, Century New World, Kashgar, and Gingerbread House. After trying all these quote unquote Splendor alternatives or Splendor killers, I've decided to keep some. I've decided to keep Majesty for the Realm as the more basic set collection game. Another contender for this spot was Tantan Caravan, but Majesty has the same tactile poker chips, although significantly smaller and less chunky. I'll also be keeping Gingerbread House because I find that it's different than Splendor. It's more about the 3D tile laying game, and there's not a lot of engine being built. I also really like this game, not necessarily as something that can replace Splendor, but a game with the same complexity and playing time, but scratches a different kind of itch. I have a lot of itches. I'll also be keeping Century New World. Century Spice Road was a good game, and I liked it. Not as much as Splendor, but I did like it. I'm keeping Century New World because I just prefer the worker placement aspect of the game mixed in with the upgrading of the resources aspect. And finally, I am keeping Hadara as the perfect tiny step up from Splendor. If I want to introduce something new to people who have already played Splendor and love it as much as I do, Hadara brings in the perfect amount of additional complexity to still make it digestible for my non-collector gaming friends, but it is the most reminiscent of Splendor in the whole bunch. This does not mean that the other games I won't be keeping are bad games. It's just that, for my particular taste, the other games worked better. It was more intuitive and engaging, and I feel like this will go the same for my group of friends. Those are my favorite Splendor alternatives. Let me know what your favorite Splendor alternatives are. Maybe there are games I'm not aware of that scratches the same kind of itch. Let me know. And before we end the show, let's just jump into a quick feedback from the meeple. So I asked the question, what are your top 10 favorite games of all time? So this is in connection to my previous episode, my top 30 board games as of 2019. And I got a couple of feedback. First was from Sam. Sam said, top 10 in no particular order. Clans of Caledonia. I haven't played this game. It's in my collection, but I really want to play it. Just play it, please, Sam. Arkham Horror LCG. I haven't played this too. Castles of Burgundy. Yes, that's also in my top 10. That's my number 2. Agricola. Viticulture. That's also in my top 10. Unmatched. Just One. Honshu. Stockpile. And Concordia. So I haven't played a lot of your games, Sam. So we should play it, definitely. Next, I got a feedback from Celine. Okay, so sa kanya in order. Number 1, Time Stories. It's also in my top 10. Number 2, Acquire. Number 3, Splendor, our topic today. Number 4, Avalon. Number 5, Deception, Murder in Hong Kong. Number 6, Illusion. Yes, she really likes this game. Number 7, Love Letter. Number 8, Bang, the dice game. Number 9, Chronicles of Crime. And number 10, Game of Thrones was fun but evil. So my qualification. I'm surprised that The Mind isn't here. Your number 1 favorite. No. Your number 2 favorite cooperative game. I also got a feedback from Ria. Hers is Blood Rage, Godfather, Quacks, Chinatown, High Society, Karuba, Dixit, Deep Sea Adventure, and Deception. 9 lang yun, Ria. Nasaan yung 10? Okay, so that's her top 9. Probably because it's just from Instagram, so maybe the characters were limited. But anyway, I highlighted here Godfather because I really also enjoy this game. And I am happy that other people like this game too. And that is going to wrap up today's episode. I hope you guys enjoyed the show. If you would like to see more from me, you can follow me on Instagram at TheBoardGamerPH to see some pictures and quick reviews I do of the games I play. You can also like On Deck's Facebook page to get notified of new episodes. And that's also where you can post your feedback and let me know what you think of the episode. You can also reach me through email at theboardgamerph@gmail.com and we can talk about board games all day long. Thank you for listening, everyone. I'll catch you next time. Happy gaming!